Ekabo. Welcome to Orisha Speaks. I am Osha Kayode Shola, and I thank you all for tuning in today through Orisha.net. And this program that we have here is intended for all Orishas, Omo Awo students, those who may be looking for an African-centered way of spirituality and philosophy, recent initiates, or even those who've been initiated for quite some time, that is seeking that applied, everyday, practical, spiritual routine to enhance your praxis. Before we get started today, we'll start with a song to Ọbàtálá. Goes something as follows. All land is Ọbàtálá's land. All land is Ọbàtálá's land. Ọbàtálá has brought land from Ọ̀run to Ayé. All land is Ọbàtálá's land. I want to also reference a essay from the Ifa literary corpus, and it's an essay from the Odu Ikayeku, and it goes as follows. Ikayeku ọ̀pẹ níbọ̀ ọ̀hún ọlọ́run adífá fọ̀ṣà tí ọ̀ṣẹ́ gbá gbogbo òrùmọ̀lẹ̀ wáyé mo tẹ́wá mẹ́kọ̀ọ́ àkọ́ fún mi o òrìṣà ẹ̀gbọ́ mo tẹ́wá kó fún mi òrìṣà ẹ̀gbọ́. So may that ashe that's in those words resonate with your spirit as we're ushering down the energy of Ọbàtálá. And with that essay, briefly, it states that it is the Ọ̀pẹ of Ikayeku that hears the voices in the spirit world, the divine for Ọbàtálá, who is responsible for ushering all the supernatural forces from Ọ̀run to Ayé. And within the upcoming episodes, we'll speak a little bit more to the sentiments of Ọbàtálá and in totality dealing with spirituality and certain types of spiritual healing. So I thank you all for showing up here today, and we may come here with different stresses, different issues of the world. From now, we have the gas shortage, we have the coronavirus. People are, suffering to make ends meet. Different people are having different experiences. But if you are tuned in today, and if you are here and you're hearing my voice, and if you're seeing this video, let this show as some type of reassurance that everything will be okay, that all the stresses in the world, all of your problems that you may have, may Ọbàtálá bring peace, clarity, resolve, and success over all type of oppositions that you may have. So don't sweat it. We're going to get through this together. Before we get started, we are going to do a real brief meditation. As long as you're not driving, if you're in somewhere safe, just, if you need to press pause, pause the tape and get to a place to where you can just focus for a couple of seconds. All right? So put your feet flat on the floor. Find yourself a seat, somewhere where you can sit up with your spine up straight. And I want you to close your eyes. Okay? Breathe in deeply through your nose. Breathe out through your nose. Breathe in. Breathe out. Keep a normal, safe, comfortable rhythm as you're breathing in and breathing out. As you are breathing, I want you to visualize a bright white light that's starting in the core of your stomach. See your body with this white light in center. each time that you exhale, see this white light expanding and expanding. Keep breathing until this whole white light expands to a perfect egg-shaped aura that is around your whole body. Now, as you're seeing this image, as this image is coming to fruition, I want you to hold on to a feeling of joy, of peace, a time where you felt absolutely at calm and at peace, elation. Hold on to that feeling for about 7 seconds. And keep breathing evenly. Ashe. Again, welcome. And as I stated earlier, trust that if you are here, have no stress, has no troubles, you will receive what you need to receive. And I believe in the West this is called something like synchronicity. And this recalls a instance to where I was doing the normal hustle and bustle one day, and I was getting up to go to work here, and at this time I was in Maryland, getting into the Virginia traffic and on to DC, taking the kids to school on my way to work. And I was so behind. It wasn't one of the best days at all. And when I was driving, I got behind one of these U-Haul trucks, one of these large freight trucks or whatnot. And then on the back of the truck, someone etched with their fingers, "Better days are coming." And I thought to myself, hey, that's cute, that was nice. It wasn't as motivating until I actually thought about it. And if I would have been one moment late, either getting the kids dressed, or 1 minute late packing lunch, 1 minute late pumping gas, if I was 1 minute late at a traffic stop, I would have missed that sign. And that sign that was for me wasn't a coincidence. It was something that was meant for me to see. And sometimes when we're looking for a ray of hope, or we're praying and invoking and we're petitioning the Orisha, and sometimes we may not have that faith that they hear what we are petitioning to, but there are subtle reminders and subtle oracular experiences that happens beyond the Opani Fa, or beyond the Erede Lagoon, beyond the Kolana divination or water divination, or whichever practices that you do. If you get still and you get quiet, take a look at the surroundings that are around you. Look at the animals. Look at license plates. If you happen to walk on to a conversation, every day there's certain situations that's going to reaffirm an answer that you may have. So for every experience that we may have at our shrine, when we are invoking and we listen, you always have a confirmation that better days are coming. So let this serve to you as one of those. As I was coming up, I'm recalling an experience to when I was going for my first degree. At this time, I was into fine arts, graphic design, and I was going downtown to Arlington in Virginia. I was going to work, and so I was doing this art piece that involved a X-Acto knife. And if you're not an artist and you're not familiar, an X-Acto knife is basically a razor blade on a pen. So I was doing this artwork that required it, and I was in a rush. I did not secure the X-Acto knife safely. It has a plastic top that's used to keep that razor blade from poking through. I just threw it in my bag, hurried me, got dressed for work. I was behind, and I got on the metro and I was on my way. So it was shoulder room in the metro, and I had like a duffel bag, and this duffel bag was over my shoulder, and it was swinging and you all probably know if you've been on the train, these sudden stops and the sudden acceleration and back and forth and back and forth. and I had this duffel bag on my shoulder, and it swung with force, and it hit me in the back of my calf. And I just felt this hot pressure just go through my leg, and I seen all this blood that was just, trickling down my calf. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, someone just stabbed me on the train. It's about to go down, And I looked around and see what was going on. No one was behind me. And I looked inside of my bag. I looked at the bag on the outside, and there you could see the razor blade that was sticking through the bag. And I was just so upset at myself that I let this happen, that I was so foolish enough to not safely secure the X-Acto knife. Took it out, threw it, threw it in the bag safely, and I went on about my business. So I think the only thing that I had at that time was like a couple of napkins and a shoelace from another shoe. Made this makeshift tourniquet because the cut was pretty bad. So when I took the later on, when I found me a seat, I took the duffel bag off and placed it on the floor. And so the duffel bag kind of brushed up against like my thigh area, and I felt I got another cut right down my thigh, by my hip to my thigh. And I thought, what in the world is going on? And there was another X-Acto knife in that bag. And so, I cut myself twice in the same day, back to back. And so I went to work. I think this was my first day. And I thought it would be so bad if I called out. And, I went there, and my colleague was wondering, why are you limping and why are you walking so slow? I showed them the cut, and they was like, you got to go home. Went back. And by the time I got to the doctor, they seen that, that this napkin was in there, and it was in bad shape. And I got cleaned up. So I'm going to fast forward to the important part, the important parts of the story. As I was waiting to get those stitches, I had to makeshift like a tourniquet, and I let it sit for quite some time. So I had to, peel the napkin out of there. We had to, put some disinfectant, some antiseptic in there to clean it out, or it was going to catch an infection. And I had to stitch it back up, and I was good to go. But the more I think about this story, it reminded me of my spiritual journey. Is that I went through some times, and you went through this walk of trying to find truth and trying to find ourselves. And at times we could operate in like a I think something is what's labeled as like a functional maladaptation. Is that we would try to band-aid things or put a quick fix on certain things, knowing that there's some type of infection that's kind of festering there. If we don't put the proper things to clean it up, if we don't stitch it up, we're going to have an infection. So I think the same thing with spirituality is that, as black people, we were cut, especially us in the diaspora. And then there was a colonization that was going on in the mainland. So it's the same infection here and abroad, to where, it hurts, certain things that we may believe that aren't true. And so we hold on to these things, and there's nothing but fear that's keeping us from holding on to these things in our heart that we know that's just not right. And so we are going to have to go through this point of taking off that napkin, ripping that napkin out of the wound, and it's going to hurt, putting that antiseptic inside of that wound, which is going to hurt, but it's going to get the infection out, Then we close it up, we stitch it up, and then we begin to heal. But with this, functional maladaptation, I believe that there are some philosophies and there are some things that were given to us, marketed to us, either spirituality speaking, religiously speaking, and spirituality and religion are actually the same thing. It's what one chooses to focus on. But that's another conversation. Is that it's some things that we took that we brought, that it just doesn't serve us any good. So as you make this first step of coming into Isheshe, studying traditional African religion and culture, is that you're going to have to come with an empty cup. And there are some things that we just can't, carry over from a Western perspective and try to operate that here. So it's like, we're coming into a clean house with dirty shoes on. And we're going to track all of that mud into the clean carpet, or in the clean hardwood floor and whatnot. And so, I mean, there's different philosophies that it just doesn't coexist with how we see the world, as I'm learning, have learned, and as we continue to learn in, Isheshe. So things like, vengeance, things like revenge, rudeness, hypersexuality, the way that we parent, patriarchal societies, things that we have got, or the things that we received from Western religion, we just don't see the same way in African culture. And if we don't drop that, we're going to be carrying that over into our culture, into what we may have, maybe a remnants of spirit of Christianity or Islam, Buddhism, Jainism, Brahmanism, etc. And like, for an example, we can speak about Arun, and how many individuals will call Arun heaven. And Arun and heaven are not the same thing. You don't need to convert to a European lineage to make it to the Arun. You don't have to believe Jesus Christ to believe in Jesus Christ to make it to Arun. There's no such type of contingencies. Actually, we interact with the Arun on a daily basis. When we divine, we're interacting with the spirit world. When you go to sleep, when you sing, when you dance, there's many different activities that we do to where we interact with this place, which isn't consistent with Western religion. And then also the idea that individuals think that Olodumare, Eledumare is God, and how they translate even Orisha as God. Those are two different philosophies, and they're not the same. We don't have that belief of a sole entity, this one conglomerate entity that is responsible for the totality of creation, or that supreme moral authority, that supreme enforcer of, the afterlife, or that one entity that knows all, that's everywhere. We just don't see the world like that. It's not the same. And then even to the contemporary belief that, the black woman is God and the black man is God, these are black New Age philosophies that sound good, but really looking at the philosophy, it doesn't exist, and it's not real. And things aren't metaphors, and if we're speaking metaphorically and not actually or literally, we'll forever be lost and unable to actually practice a religion and practice a culture if we're lost in just, grammar, or lost in things, empty words that really doesn't mean anything. So it is recommended as we move forward that we have to see the world from our own African eyes, from our own ancestral eyes, and not really follow so much the Western ways, and even some of the New Age ways, which basically is a form of nihilism. And I listen to a lot. I listen to some videos and some New Age authors, and just to see some things. And I just find it funny that when they're speaking about their philosophies, and in actuality they're making science their God, and they would speak ill of religion, or how the priests, and they can't see it, but now we have science to prove this and science to prove that. But in actuality, it was our practice that gave birth to the sciences. There were things that there was no instruments that were created at that time to perceive the things that we knew. But with that, it still influences this form of nihilism, which is prominent in a lot of cultures. And so if you're not aware with that philosophy, but it's like the belief in nothing, nothing but, I guess, possibilities. But it's almost a form of of a form of religious thought that just it really doesn't believe in any moral authority. It doesn't believe in spiritual law. It just believes basically in science, and they don't really believe in anything. And we have, individuals that are picking up that same philosophy, and individuals are having a world of trouble. And I think this kind of gives birth to the toxic spirituality movement, where there's a lot of blaming on other people. There's a lot of just darkness, words that don't inspire, words that are come from individuals' own place of trauma, where you have healer or people who are attempting to heal who aren't healed themselves, and they're speaking from a voice of pain, a voice of sorrow, a voice of regret, a voice of anger that themselves have not healed, and you're having the blind leading the blind while they're doing things that are that is coming from a philosophical orientation of nihilism. And let me give you an example. So I went to this, I won't say the name of it, but I went to one of these festivals, and they had a woman there, and she was teaching, a type of down south Juju, and sometimes these terms get lost in translation. So hoodoo actually is the Akan religion and ritual practice that was maintained during the enslavement era. Just like voodoo, which was the preserved, which is really come from Vodun, from the Ewe and Fon, Benin and Togo, and as these individuals kept and maintained their practice in the United States during the enslavement era. And so Juju is how the Yoruba, how we maintained our religion in culture in the United States during the enslavement era. So it's false to say that black folks, we didn't have our culture, or that all the Orisha practitioners or all the Orisha practice was in South America, Trinidad, Tobago, and whatnot. There's actually verifiable evidence that states that us Yoruba people, that we did practice our culture as we maintained it through enslavement here in North America, of course, way before Oyotunji. We kept our practice here. So this woman was a conjure woman, and she was giving the crowd ingredients and practical methods. And I know a little bit about psychicism and manipulating natural phenomena. So what she was saying was true, but she was telling individuals on how to basically not only how to make like a conjure bag, which is it's neutral in ethics. It's how you use it, and some things are efficacious, but there's other things that you can do to kind of condition that energy. But there's different strokes for different people, so I'm not going to judge that. But what I will say was that she gave out details on how to basically make a man fall in love with you, what to take, what to grab, what to say, what to do to bring someone to you. And then I found it so odd was that this individual was standing next to, as she called it, a Legba staff, and was speaking high of Legba, and I'm not sure who made that, but it didn't look like a any Sheshe or even leukemia or Santeria kind of. I'm not sure what or who made that staff, but I just found that it was very shocking to have a principal of Eshu next to you as you are coaching people to do unethical things. So when things start happening to people's lives, I think a lot of times we can be quick to blame someone, or we can say, oh, it's Ajogun that are after me, or all these negative vibes that are after me, or all of these people are throwing, they're throwing juju on me and stuff like that. Sometimes that can be the case, but from what I've learned as a studying practitioner, is that a lot of times negativities come to us because of what we have done, and if we continue to believe in nihilism, that where we don't believe in anything or no type of repercussion, we will have a very hard time moving forward in our lives, let alone understanding or having a relationship with our ancestors, the Egungun, your Ori and Nu, or in our Orisha. And one thing to understand is that there's a belief of an unconditional love, that it doesn't matter what we do, that our Orisha will always be with us, that our Ori and Nu will always be with us. And that is not true. And that is philosophy that was brought over by Christianity, Islam, Brahmanism, Jainism, Buddhism, other Far East and Western culture. The things that we do will repel. They're like magnets. We can very well repel an Orisha away from us to where they won't have anything to do with us. You can repel your Ori Anu away from you to where they will have nothing to do with you. There's a proverb, Ebe in Akan, that says the Akra is like a Akra. It hates filth, and it will continue to drive it away. So in Chui, in Akra is your Ori Anu, that own your own personal deity, that is basically your GPS that guides you to your incarnation objective, and that is correlated to your wealth. And we all have one. So the Akra is your Ori Anu. So the Akra is a cat. And if you see a cat is always licking its paw because the cat hates filth, right? And in this proverb is bringing the simile to how our Ori Anu hates filth. It does not dwell in dirty things, and it will leave you. And so just like how in Chui, there's a term, Kra or Ka means to flee or to leave. And that word is poetically correlated to, Akra. And it's the same thing in Kemet. That means not only does it mean your indwelling intelligence, and the Medutu or the symbol is a 2 hands straight up with a mummified deity next to it. So it's telling you that there is a deity that's enshrined between your 2 shoulders. And it also says the same thing, to take leave, to leave. And our ancestors are communicating with us is that there are actions that we do that will cause our first mind to leave and to be repelled from us. And I guess initiation, not I guess, I'm certain that initiation doesn't really mean anything in that sense. You can't make a deity stay with you. You can't make your Ori Anu stay with you. Your ancestors, that may be a different story, but once they leave, we're like a body without a brain, and we'll become susceptible to different types of mental illnesses, depressions, anxiety, and all different types of antisocial behavior because we lost our anchor in the world. So again, this comes to the sentence of thoroughly understanding the expectations of what it means to be a Omo Awo or Olorisha, or just Aboisha, a devotee of our culture. So I want to round up with one last story as we give you some practical takeaways, things that you could apply for this coming week. And so as I was starting my journey, and of course coming up in the West, my family grew up in Christianity, and some things just didn't resonate with me, even though I was really tied into, I guess, the spiritualism, but what I was looking for, it wasn't there. So my ancestors led me out, and they led me to Isheshe through several different experiences. Not necessarily a blood test, but the ancestors orchestrated events to show me what was my last ancestral clan that I incarnated under. And so I went to this, it was this multicultural circle. It was different people from all ethnicities and all walks of life, and just teaching ethics and spirituality. So I sat there eager and just ready to learn. I was reading a lot of metaphysics at that time, and I started getting a little bit deep into like the esoteric studies in Kemet. So I sat down, and this brother said to me, real red skin, and had a whole lot of Native American paraphernalia and medicines and drums and stuff. And so he said to me, he said, brother, I just heard your medicine ting. You must have some real strong medicine. And at this time, I had this chat on that I put my energy into for protection, and so that's how the conversation started. And I was eager just to learn, and I asked him, what is a good place, to start? It's like, where do I start at this journey? And so he he looked over to the corner, and he got real quiet, and he said, the first step is to forget everything. And he just turned around and he was quiet. And I was sitting there, I was waiting for like a couple of seconds, like, okay, like what's the next, what else after that? And he didn't say anything. And so, I knew he would, at times he can have a really good sense of humor. But it just had to just lay on my spirit for a little bit. And that was the first step. And I guess that's the first step that I want to, expand to y'all, with preconceived notions, I guess, about Isheshe that you may have heard from, or even things that you have brought along the way. Because I can understand that a lot of us, due to colonialism and racism, that we didn't grow up in our own culture that wasn't really free from European interference, Western interference. But I would say to you all, is the first step is to really forget everything to what you think you know, or what you may think how the world operates or how reality operates. Because as you'll see as we move forward, the truth is stranger than fiction. And this will have it will be something very positive for you. It'll have a monumental impact as you go through this unlearning process. And sometimes it can be a little scary. Sometimes this, unlearning can be a very uncomfortable place. But, once I learned, the lies, I found a certain peace. And so I believe you all are in a better space than what I was, because I didn't know anything about Orisha. I just figured out that, I figured out, the lies before, and I kind of dropped that, and, I feel like some people still hold on to, the Western culture and the Western religion, and even bring that into the culture. I've seen, folks with crucifixes on and, talking about Jesus, and still having E-days on, or individuals saying Obatala is Jesus Christ, or Obatala is a white man. And if you choose to still hold on to that for some reason, that's your choice. But do not mix or create a hybridized expression. But even if individuals still continue to practice that, just know that not only was, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism was borrowed from African pre-existing religion, but they weren't based on real people at all. Because of course it can't be based on real people, because one, it's plagiarized from African deities, but even from the European perspective, it's supposed to be based on different levels of consciousness, as this consciousness is having different experiences and is moving through different people in the Bible, so to speak. And then when you speaking about Jesus and the Son is coming back, and even, like I said, even people in the Isheshe culture still believing, in Muhammad and Jesus and whatnot, but it's all astrological, and they're speaking about consciousness. For an example, how the Son, will die on the cross and it's going to come back again. They're all speaking about something astrological that happens during the winter solstice. So during those periods, those 3 days around, at the end of December, was that 23rd, 24th, 25th? I could be off 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Let me check on that, and get back to you guys. But on those dates, that's the days that has the least amount of sun. And so if you look at the sun crossing over the horizon line, the sun does not rise over the southern crux, or this which is a cross in the sky. So it stays down for those 3 days. Hence why the sun has died. It died on the cross 3 days, and how the sun was resurrected. That means from that point, after the winter solstice, it slowly starts to increase hours of sunlight. And then even how you have the 3 kings How the three kings bought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The three kings are the three stars on the Orion, quote unquote, the Orion star constellation, because those three stars point to the sun on the winter solstice. And of course, you know, the Orion star constellation is what we in Africa call the Sa constellation. So as the sun rises and it comes again in Easter, and that's when you have another equinox, so where there's equal, you know, sun and light. So it's all astrological. Even with Muhammad, that came from, you know, African culture. Muhammad, which was the god of the northern part of the Nile, which was a river. So they slowly started turning these into other deities that had some type of ethnocentric contingency in order for you to be accepted. So you had to drop your lineage, and you have to drop your identity and drop your culture. So I say it again, if individuals still choose to pick up that culture, and that's fine, but just know that that came from an African source, and that you can't really merge those two into our culture. So like I said, when I was coming through, I knew the lies before I knew the truth. But the thing that gave me solace, and even as you're going through this this time of just learning and growing in spirituality, some things may become uncomfortable. But if you take a look out in the sky, I want you to take a look at, and if it's the sun, if it's, you know, darkness or light, you know, daytime or nighttime, take a look. If it's in the daytime, just look at the sun. You know, regardless of what you just heard, something is still animating that sun and keeping that sun alive. You know, if you're looking at, you know, the night sky, something is keeping that moon in the sky. Something is still animating that moon so that it could regulate the tides and still cool down the atmosphere. If you ever sat in a forest and you can see that the forest is alive, when you see the wind that is just blowing through the trees, and as it can knock off, you know, let's say a fruit or blow seeds, and it starts like the germination process, rain comes down, like nature is alive. And if you sit and observe, there's some overruling law that's like orchestrating natural phenomena. So the biggest takeaway from today is that nihilism is not a part of our culture. We just can't do things, and we can't act a certain way as if there's no type of deity that is enforcing that law. Now, some people can go and swear on the Bible and, you know, do all different types of atrocities and nothing happened. But I urge you, don't carry on that same philosophy by swearing on Ogun, Obatala, Yeshu, Oya, Oba, and expect, you know, that same consequence. This religion is based on cosmic law. Our spirituality is based on cosmic law, and that's the law of nature. And of course, you all may be familiar with Ma'at, and, you know, and Kemet and Ma'a, and that's basically Odu. You know, those codified laws and that wisdom that is expressed by Orunmila, and he shows us on how to live a good life and to live a long life. The purpose of our culture here is to pass this Iwakwele test. So we may go through some things that are extremely tough for us. You may be going through something right now that it's almost tailored fit for you, something that is just bugging you in just your own independent way that just bugs you intimately and is designed like that. That is meant to develop your character. And so rather than, you know, being angry or being upset, just know that this is your test. This is your test for you to pass so you can become an ancestor once you leave this existence. So you can go to the physical, so you can go to the spirit world and lead your ancestors here on earth. It's all a test, so do your best. The last part I'll leave with you today is the words that I received from Maluo and Ọbàtálá, Baba Aboshade, Oladeji, Olayiwola, the RA of Ọbàtálá in Oyo. And something that he told me that I really just thoroughly understood a couple of days ago, about a week or so ago, as the more I was studying. And he said to me, do not rely on herbs, talisman, and magic. It is Obatala that will make you successful. And the more that I thought about that, and it really struck home to me, is that ethical character and purity is the strongest medicine that you could ever wish for. And I literally mean that. And I know you can have different talismans and different herbs doing just wonderful things, but there are things that I'll expose to you a little bit later on about the power of thoughts and the power of keeping a good ethical character and what you could really do for yourself. This week, continue to take a look at your own path, about your spiritual history. What things have you acquired that in your soul that you feel like this does not serve me, that this belief structure may not be consistent with the path that I'm going? I want you to think about some things that you may have to drop when you're moving forward. And I also want you to think about those things that may bring you out of your character. So is there anything that incites impatience or anger or rage with inside of you? I want you to take note of that and write it down on a cue card. Understand that that thing is your own personal test, so that the next time that situation comes up, just know that you cannot be angry about that one thing. And I want to express to you that anger in our culture is taboo. And when we say excuse me or don't be offended, in Yoruba, because some things don't equally translate into English, we'll say mabi enu, is meaning don't give birth to your insides, meaning don't let that rage and that anger just overall just consume you. Believe it or not, that it is taboo to be angry, and it's taboo to be contemporary. In American culture, we may not see it like that, but in Isheshe, take it from me, it is considered taboo to be contemporary and angry. I'll leave that with you for your homework this week. Until next time, Yo Odabo.